What is going on, everyone? Today we're going to be reading more unpopular opinions that you guys gave me in the comment section of a recent community post that I made. These unpopular opinions are going to be related to the Black Ops 6 Zombies reveal, and I'll be completely honest, a lot of these are not that unpopular of opinions, but in general, they're just things that you guys had to say about the Black Ops 6 Zombies reveal, and I wanted to just react to some of them, talk about them, give my thoughts on them, because videos like this are kind of fun. First comment is coming from Brez. Really hate how we are moving away from exclusive HUDs for maps. Like the Shadows of Evil HUD fits perfectly to the map, and I feel like a custom HUD for Terminus with Kraken or Cthulhu-like things on the HUD would give it so much personality. I agree 1000%. I know there's been a lot of debate with the HUD recently in the Zombies community because Black Ops 6, of course, they did reveal what the HUD is going to look like for Zombies, and there are some people that are kind of annoyed with the fact that so many people are criticizing the HUD because they're saying, well, at least they did something, at least they gave us the ability to customize the layout, so why would you complain? But it's one of those things where, yes, I'm happy that they're giving us the ability to customize the layout of the HUD, but I don't think that changes the fact that there are still some fundamental problems with how the HUD looks. The fact that it resembles multiplayer way too much, and it doesn't really have that unique Zombies flair to it. And I think little changes like, yeah, giving it some sort of a Kraken look to it would be really sick, especially for Terminus. And even if they don't want to go as far as to make map-specific HUDs, at the very least, have it just be a Zombie-specific HUD. You can do the same HUD for every Zombies map, that's fine. Just make it different than multiplayer when it comes to the visuals. That's all I ask for. And I think if we give them enough feedback, they might actually make changes to this. So definitely keep giving feedback, respectfully, of course, don't be an asshole, and maybe they'll make a change to it. Next comment is coming from Headless Perp. I think this is a pretty large evolution of the Zombies mode, and honestly, I'm a massive fan of it. Diving deeper into those RPG mechanics without going completely overboard like Cold War is what I wanted to see. I agree for the most part. I actually think they're reserving themselves a little bit more when it comes to certain mechanics, like for example the augments system, where yes, you're going to have the ability to upgrade certain things like your perks, but you're not going to have this completely overpowered system where you can just upgrade all your perks to tier 5 and you always have those permanently. And I'm really glad they made a change to that for sure. This could be a huge evolution, definitely in the positive direction, but I guess we'll have to wait and see how it's actually going to play because we have no idea in terms of actual practice. All we know is the information, but is it going to play good? We'll have to wait and see. Next comment comes from Mark. Hot take, BO6 is going to double down on the aspects of Cold War that made it so easy, and it will cause a massive separation between new players and veterans of the franchise. So I think there's definitely going to be a lot of things from Cold War that obviously are going to carry over when it comes to how easy Cold War was. I don't think BO6 is suddenly going to be like a really challenging Call of Duty experience, but at the same time, I think it's definitely going to fix a lot of the problems that Cold War had when it comes to being so much for the casual player base as well as new players and not really having enough for veterans. I think they made it pretty clear that they are doing a lot for hardcore fans of the franchise. They are making sure that they're going to have a lot of features on the maps, a lot of side quests, the Easter eggs are going to be harder. So I think they are trying. Now, are they going to actually be able to execute that perfectly? We'll have to wait and see. I don't know how far that's actually going to go. This is one of those things I can definitely understand this concern for sure. I have the concern too, but I'm hopeful. I'm definitely more optimistic than not at this point, but we'll have to wait and see. Things I'm definitely most worried about are stuff like the loadout system, the point system, stuff that's going to carry over from Cold War inevitably. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of those things, but I don't think it's going to immediately ruin the game. I think there's definitely ways to still enjoy it regardless of those mechanics. Next comment we have here from Gomez. I don't know what they spent 4 years on because it looks like Cold War all over again with extra gimmicks. So I really do feel like BO6 to Cold War is kind of what Black Ops 3 is to Black Ops 2, where Black Ops 3 was just kind of taking and perfecting certain systems from Black Ops 2. It wasn't really trying to reinvent the wheel. It wasn't trying to do anything completely different. It was just saying, okay, we have a really good system here with Mob of the Dead, Buried in Origins. Let's just try to work off of those systems and just make really solid maps out of that formula. And that's basically what Black Ops 3 was. Sure, it introduced stuff like Gobblegums and some other mechanics, but in general, it wasn't trying to make some massive, large changes. It was just saying, let's try to perfect this formula as much as we can. And I do feel like that's what Black Ops 6 is trying to do with Cold War. It's bringing back a lot of features that they believe worked with that game. And as much as a lot of those features I don't personally like, I do know there's a lot of people who do like those mechanics, and obviously just based on the fact that the game did very well, they're probably sitting there going, why are we going to change all these things that a lot of people seem to have liked? But that doesn't mean there's going to be no changes, because they have already said a lot of things that are going to be very different from Cold War For example, the tier upgrades, that not returning, and now having the augment system. That's a big example of something that's going to be completely different in this game. Obviously, stuff like the Easter eggs being harder hopefully will be a big change. I think the game's going to just have a lot more to it than Cold War did, because Cold War just was rushed, obviously. So I always said it was kind of hard to judge modern zombies based on Cold War because it wasn't a fully developed game. Hopefully BO6 is going to be a game that we're going to get a better idea as to what direction they're trying to take zombies in for the foreseeable future. Next up, we got a comment from Nice One. They should have scrapped the Cold War mechanics completely. Get rid of armor and bring back buildable shields that you can upgrade, scrap weapon rarities, keep Pack-a-Punch how it was before, scrap the new Wonder with... use commas, please, man. Keep Pack-a-Punch how it was before, scrap the new Wonder Fizz, and bring back the old one. Bring back unique HUDs, scrap Scorestreaks, and make zombies its own game mode instead of a multiplayer that happens to have zombies. People love to say Black Ops 4 ruined zombies, when in reality it was Cold War that truly took away everything that made zombies what it is. So here's the thing. I don't disagree with much of this. There's maybe one or two things I disagree with, like Scorestreaks. I'm fine with Scorestreaks being in zombies. I've always said that. My issue with Scorestreaks is how you earn them. I don't like the whole idea of earning them through salvage. Let me do a side quest for it. Let me find other ways of getting these streaks. Let me build them. Stuff like that would be more interesting. But the existence of having a chopper gunner in zombies, or a turret, or, you know, a Hellstorm missile, like all those things are fine in zombies. I don't really see the problem with it personally. The other things, though, I agree, to be honest. I would much rather have a buildable shield that you can upgrade. I would much rather there's no rarities. I would much rather the Pack-a-Punch be more similar to it was in prior games. Not completely, though. I do think the Infinite Warfare system is the best Pack-a-Punch system, at least in my opinion. But regardless of all of this, obviously being some of my biggest issues with modern zombies, I'm still looking forward to seeing how this game is going to play, because I don't think it's impossible for the game to still be really good, even with having some features that I don't personally like, because the game is much more than just a few mechanics, obviously. Black Ops 4 is the perfect example of this, because Black Ops 4 made some terrible changes to the zombies formula with the perk system, the point system, the HUD not being too good. There was definitely some issues with Black Ops 4's core mechanics, but guess what? I still loved that game. I still loved the maps in that game, most of them. I loved the Easter eggs, because there was so much more to the game. My issue with Cold War is that not only did they change the mechanics in a way that I didn't like, but they also didn't have much to offer outside of that. So there wasn't like other things to make up for the fact that I don't like these new mechanics. So BO6 could definitely be the similar situation as BO4, where yes, there's some mechanics I don't really like and I would prefer they're a bit different, but at the end of the day, if they have a really cool Easter egg, if they have really cool boss fights, if the music's great, if the map atmosphere is great, if the bosses are great, then I'm gonna suck it up and just enjoy it nonetheless. But it does not mean you can't criticize it, because of course you are allowed to criticize something while still enjoying it. That is such an important thing that I feel like a lot of people in the zombies community just can't seem to grasp. They think just because you criticize it, it means you're not enjoying it. That is not how it works. A lot of people think that I hate Cold War. They think I absolutely hate Cold War Zombies because I do criticize it a lot. But that can't be further from the truth. I do enjoy Cold War Zombies. I've had a lot of fun in it throughout the years. I just think it has a lot of problems. Next, we have a comment from Random Pillow. I'm not satisfied with getting 2 maps on launch. BO4 got 4 maps, 3 of which were very in-depth with a regular 3-year dev cycle. BO6 has had a 4-year dev cycle, yet we're only getting 2 maps. I also expect Liberty Falls to be underwhelming because they've barely talked about it so far, but I hope I'm wrong on that. So this point is interesting because I obviously more maps is better. Obviously, I'm not gonna be opposed to having more content. That's always gonna be nice to see. But at the end of the day, I think it's a lot more important than just the number of maps. I think the actual quality and the depth of these maps is the most important thing. And so if, let's say, Terminus and Liberty Falls both end up being really content heavy maps, like really deep maps that have a lot of stuff to them, there's so much replayability, then I'm perfectly fine with just having 2 maps at launch. That is perfectly acceptable. Just the same way I was perfectly fine with only having Shadows of Evil as the launch map in BO3. Well, of course, you also have the Giant, but the Giant was like a small survival experience. It really wasn't meant to be a full experience of a map. So Shadows of Evil, though, was such a great map, had so much content to it, to the point where I was totally satisfied with that being the only main launch map. But then you go to Cold War, the Machine didn't have a lot of content to it, so that being the only launch map kind of sucked. And having a 4-year dev cycle for BO6, yes, if we have 2 maps and they're not that content heavy, we're gonna have a problem. Like this is gonna be an issue. But based on what they've said about Terminus, it sounds like Terminus is gonna be filled with side quests. It's gonna be filled with things to do. So I do feel like we're gonna have enough content to play with. and I'm assuming DLC 1 probably won't come out till like February, maybe January, so we're gonna have to wait probably 3 or so months before we get another map. But if these 2 maps are really content heavy, then I think we're fine and there's really no problem. It just really depends on that. And you saying Liberty Falls is probably going to be underwhelming because they barely talked about it, I don't think that's actually going to matter because they're going to be talking about Liberty Falls at COD Next really soon. They just wanted to save something for COD Next. They don't want to just reveal both the maps right away and then have nothing to show at COD Next. So that's why they're saving Liberty Falls for COD Next. Next comment comes from Cat Crossed. This has potential to rival BO3 as the best zombies game, only if post-launch support is good. Vanguard and Modern Warfare Zombies post-launch was horrific. So I personally don't think this is going to be better than BO3. I just don't. It's going to be a hard thing to beat. Like BO3 is just such a perfect zombies experience in my opinion. There's only minor flaws affecting things, but everything just is so perfectly construed. It's such a fun experience. But am I going to be open to the idea of it outclassing BO3? Of course. Here's the thing though. I don't think it has to. I don't even think it has to get close to it. For me, the bar is Black Ops Cold War. As long as it's better than Black Ops Cold War Zombies, I'll be satisfied. That is kind of just how it is for me. If it's not even better than BO2, BO4, or Infinite Warfare, I'll still be fine as long as it's better than Black Ops Cold War Zombies. That's the bar for me personally. Next comment comes from Celtic. I hate that Rarities only exists so that we can have any weapon as a starting weapon because it's so stupid that we have 2 separate machines we have to go to use 2 different currencies to progress through 2 sets of tiers on your weapon that both just up the damage. It's literally pointless and stupid and only exists so that someone could spawn in with an LMG, which fucks with the game progression. I personally think that if we have to have this system, then they should at least do it so the only way to upgrade your loadout weapon is through Aether tools that only get dropped by elites, and then make it so that wall weapons can have their tiers upgraded at the wall chalk with points. This would incentivize players to use wall weapons as it's easier to go up the tiers or use the box to gamble for a higher tier with the loadout weapon being the longest road to upgrade. It's the only balanced way of doing this in my opinion. Arsenal machine would then be only used for applying ammo mods. So I mostly agree here. I really don't like the rarity system. I thought I did when Cold War first came out, and I think I shared that opinion for a while actually, but I realized over time there's really no necessity for it. It's almost like a band-aid solution to fixing other problems with the game. And yeah, it does kind of make things feel a bit repetitive because you're upgrading your weapon in 2 different ways that's basically doing the same thing, just sort of slightly differently. What's the point of it in the first place? Because I always thought rarity system might have been a good idea because, okay, well now it's balancing out the weapons. So every weapon has the same purpose, every weapon starts off a certain way, and it'll get better over time. Of course, it's not actually how it works in practice because there are certainly weapons in Cold War that are much better than other weapons even when they're at the same rarity. But generally speaking, yes, the guns are more balanced in that way. But if you were to not have a loadout system, or maybe have a loadout system and just rework it completely so it works differently, you could make it so there's no rarities, and then make it so every weapon is really, really good when pack-a-punched. So every weapon is viable. You're not going to deal with, completely useless guns in the game, but you're also not going to have a system where you have to go and upgrade your gun in multiple different ways. Instead, you can just upgrade it one way, and it's going to make it powerful. That's it. I would prefer that personally. I think it would make guns have a little bit more of a personality to them. They would be a little more interesting hitting the box and getting wall weapons. But at the end of the day, they're trying to kind of build in that Warzone connection. And unfortunately, I don't think rarities are going anywhere, at least not for now. Next up, we got a comment from Thunderstruck115. I think that bringing back Gobblegums is going to ruin co-op in this game like it did in BO3, especially if dashboarding returns, unless there's a separate set of playlists where it limits people to classic gums only for people like me who want the intended experience. I agree quite a bit here. I don't think dashboarding is going to return, by the way. That really wouldn't make any sense. Dashboarding was not an intended BO3 feature. That was something that was an exploit, and they just never patched it for some reason. I don't really know why they didn't patch it, but I don't think it's going to return. They're going to make it so Gobblegums are limited, and so that won't be a problem. But I do get your point about if you're joining public matches, you don't want everyone else in the lobby to be popping a bunch of Gobblegums every 2 seconds. I agree with that. So I really do hope they add a separate playlist where there are no Gobblegums. I think that would make a lot of sense. So let's hope they end up doing that. Next comment comes from Kyle Dogs. I hate that the Mangler is a score streak instead of a little side quest to obtain. I agree 100%. I really want this game to have a lot of side quests that reward things that you can only get through those side quests, and the Mangler score streak would have been a perfect thing to have as a side quest reward, but considering it's just going to be a score streak, what are you going to do? I do think what they could do though is you have the score streak, the Mangler itself, but make it so that we can upgrade it through a side quest. I think that's the perfect way to please everyone, because obviously the reason they make it a score streak is because they want it so people who don't like to do Easter eggs could still use this Mangler score streak, and I get that, like I understand that, but I think having more quests to do is always going to be good, especially if they're actually useful. And so I think what they could do is just, yeah, give us a way to upgrade the Mangler score streak, maybe so it could be like something that you get to keep on you at all times. You just have to recharge it, just like the spider bait from Zetsubou no Shima. I think that would be pretty cool. Next comment comes from Pepin Spaghetti. Zombies should just reset back to its BO1 days. And look, I personally don't agree. Obviously, I think my favorite zombies is stuff like BO3 and BO4, so I would never want them to revert to how BO1 was, because to me that was just way too bare bones compared to what we have nowadays. But do I want alternative ways for people to play that is more similar to BO1? Yeah. And honestly, I don't think this game's going to be that far off from it, at least from a base level, but in terms of all these extra mechanics like armor and the loadouts and the rarities, I could see why it would obviously not feel at all like classic zombies. So I really do hope they introduce some sort of a classic mode that just lets you play with classic mechanics. No armor, no, all these augments, none of that stuff. No loadouts, no rarities. It's just classic zombies on the map, play to a high round, and then as simple as that. I think that would be a cool way to give people who want that BO1 experience a way to play and enjoy this game. Next comment comes from Soap Owns Another Wii, I think. I honestly think the Dark Aether story has no hope for it because of Modern Warfare zombies. We know nothing too major will happen, so MWZ and the Modern Warfare campaigns can happen, and the Dark Aether is way too grounded to be interesting like Aether or Chaos. I agree so hard, it's not even funny, because I've been saying this for so long, ever since they confirmed that these universes are all connected, and I really hope they decide to change that, because they really could. That's their story, they can do whatever they want with it. Sure, currently is it considered a part of the same universe? That's what they at least said. They didn't say it necessarily in the game itself, but it's what's been said by Treyarch on different blog posts. So I do think there is still time to change it. They could still just decide to do something else, or they could introduce some multiverse or time travel type element that allows this universe to separate itself from the campaign universe, and perhaps they can do that like really soon. And that's the only way I think they can find a way to do something really interesting with Black Ops 6's story, where, we're obviously expecting it to just kind of fill the gaps between Cold War and MWZ, but what if they just completely blow our minds and introduce time travel, and then maybe the MWZ story kind of works its way into BO6 through time travel, and things just completely change for the better? That would be awesome, and then we can actually get its own separate story and not have to worry about, it has to fit into the campaign universe. And some people don't get what I'm saying when I try to say this, but let me put it into words in a way that I think will make you realize how bad this is, right? We know for a fact that there can't be any like worldwide outbreak. We know for a fact nothing major can happen. Look back at the Aether story. Look back at the absolutely significant things that happen. Blowing up of the Earth, blowing up of the moon. Those are major things. There's major outbreaks throughout the world in different parts of the Aether storyline. Chaos, I mean, obviously there's a lot of crazy stuff going on there, right? But this stuff is all just worldly, right? It's huge stakes, crazy things going on, controlling zombies, controlling the world essentially. You don't see that in the Dark Aether story because it's all stuff that they have to have, contained outbreaks. Oh, we have to contain the outbreak, contain the outbreak. It's all about containing the outbreak. And we know if this is all in the same universe, then they're going to just keep containing it, because the universe wouldn't make any sense if the outbreak ever happened. Even if they contain the outbreak after it becomes public, the campaigns wouldn't make any sense. So they have to work the story in a way where it's always just going to be contained and like undercover stuff. And to me, that's just not nearly as interesting as what the Aether story could be. Now, is there a way to make the story work even while keeping it all contained? Sure. But at that point, why bother? Like, just make it its own separate thing. There's no reason for them to be connected because they already don't really do anything with that campaign story. So why bother? We don't need the connection. It's unnecessary. Obviously, they're going to utilize the Dark Aether as much as they possibly can because the Dark Aether is the only place where there could be like a separate location that can't affect the main universe because it's obviously in like a separate dimension basically. But I gotta say, I'm getting tired of the Dark Aether already. I am already at a point where I'm so bored of how the Dark Aether looks. Now, of course, they can find ways to make the Dark Aether really interesting and different and unique, but they have not yet so far. I liked it quite a bit in D Machine, but ever since D Machine, I don't think they've ever done it again in a way that's that interesting. Obviously, Vanguard, it looked very different, and I was glad that it looked very different, but it looked kind of boring. And then Modern Warfare Zombies, it's so tiring. It's like we've had like a different rift like 5 different times now, and it's literally just Al Mazrah with a purple skybox, purple crystals, and that's it. And if it's all going to be just different locations but with purple skyboxes and crystals, I don't find that to be that interesting of a concept. Now, they could make it really interesting. They could definitely find a way to make the Dark Aether incredibly interesting. Just don't do the same exact skybox every time. Don't do the whole crystal thing every time. But even then, I want locations that have nothing to do with the Dark Aether. And unfortunately, those locations are just going to be, again, contained outbreaks, probably at military bases. And don't get me wrong, I'm excited for the locations of Terminus and Liberty Falls. I think they look like cool locations, but I'm just not sure how much they can keep that same sort of style and tone up for the rest of the DLC season, especially if that also goes into Black Ops 7. We're gonna get tired of it, so hopefully things can change significantly. We'll just have to wait and see. Next comment comes from It's Me Poised. Not so much of a hot take as it is a suggestion. I like the way Gobblegums are earned in this game. Going through rounds with a random chance of some gums seems like the best way they can go about this system. However, I think for higher rounds, let's say around 50 plus, there should be an increased chance to get more rare Gobblegums the higher rounds you are in. That way, there's even a more incentive to go for higher rounds. I agree, and I think this is actually what they're probably going to end up doing. I know they didn't really go into detail or specifics about how exactly this Gobblegum earning system is going to work. They just kind of generally said, oh, every couple rounds you'll get some random Gobblegums, right? But yeah, it could definitely work like this, where the higher the round you're in, the more Gobblegums you earn. And I think that would make the most sense because I'm really not looking forward to like the methods of earning as many Gobblegums as possible being like getting to round 20, exfilling, then going to round 20 again, then exfilling, and that being like the primary way to do it. I want to be able to just play the game and go as high of round as I feel like going to try to get as many Gobblegums. And I think those higher rounds being longer and harder, yes, of course they should give you more Gobblegums. I also think Easter eggs should reward you Gobblegums. I think anything that you're doing that's like any sort of challenge should definitely reward you with Gobblegums. Hopefully that's what's going to actually end up happening, and I'm kind of expecting it to be the case. Next comment comes from OMG Alpha Dog. Combining multiplayer and zombies prestige level sucks. I like it for weapons, but I want to know what level I got to only playing zombies and only playing multiplayer. I definitely agree with this quite a bit, actually. It's something I've kind of felt ever since Modern Warfare 2019 completely changed the leveling system. I'm very glad, of course, to get traditional prestige back, but I would like my prestige level to only be for one specific mode because I want to be able to compare how much I play multiplayer and zombies. And obviously you can just look at like your time played, but when it comes to what you're showing off to other players when you're in a lobby with them and you just want to show them how much you play the game, I don't know, I like that idea of everyone kind of having their own little like, okay, I have 10th prestige in zombies. That means I play a lot of zombies. But if you're a 10th prestige, it doesn't really confirm that you play a lot of zombies. You might be a big multiplayer guy who just happened to jump into zombies for one day. Like, I want to know that just by looking at your prestige levels. So unfortunately with this system, we can't do that. And I think that's kind of unfortunate. And the last comment for today is going to come from Deal10. Really dislike the removal of Carpenter and barriers. I know it's not the end of the world, but they're a series staple and the obligatory loadouts and point system issues. So I actually agree. I think it's really weird that they just removed barriers. So I don't think Treyarch confirmed this, but I believe some of the people who played Terminus behind the scenes, they talked about this in their videos and they said, yeah, there's no barriers. Like there was no Carpenters, there was no rebuilding barriers. That's a really weird change to me because it's like, yeah, I get it. Barriers are not that important to zombies anymore. Nobody really sits there and rebuilds barriers, but I still feel like it's a pretty important part to the experience. I think it's important to keep certain classic elements that give it a zombies feel, even if they're kind of unnecessary in this day and age. But it's just part of the zombies charm to me, and seeing it gone kind of sucks. That's gonna do it for this video. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comment section down below. More videos to come, of course. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Peace out, everyone.